Ever get that feeling? That little voice in your head telling you your brain is just broken? You're trying to focus, but you can't because of all the pings, the dings, the notifications, the endless scroll? Well, if that sounds familiar, you're definitely not alone. So let's dig in. Is our attention really shrinking, or is there something else going on here?
Okay, so first things first. We're going to kick things off by tackling a huge myth. And I mean, this thing is massive, and it's pretty much the source of all this anxiety we're feeling.
Yeah, you've probably heard this one, right? The one that says our focus is so shot, we actually have a shorter attention span than a goldfish. It's a pretty literal image, you got to admit. And look, this feeling, it's super common. I mean, research from King's College London found that almost half of us feel like our attention span is shorter than it used to be. So yeah, if you're sitting there nodding along, you are in very, very good company.
And this is the big number, the one you see everywhere, in articles, in meetings, everywhere. The idea that our attention span has somehow crashed down to just 8 seconds. 8! And get this, about half of people actually believe it's true. It's like the one stat that's fueled all this worry.
Okay, but here's the thing. The big reveal, that number, it's a total myth, a complete fabrication. Seriously, when reporters tried to track it down, they found nothing. No study, no real source, it just kind of popped into existence. So let's be super clear. Our brains are not broken. Something else has happened.
So, to figure out what's really going on, we gotta pop the hood and take a quick look at how our brains work. And trust me, it's a pretty cool system.
So check this out. It's a pretty simple flow, right? Information comes at us through our senses, what we see, what we hear, and that hits our sensory memory. Then just a tiny little bit of that gets sent on to our working memory. Think of that like the RAM on your computer or the desk you're working on right now. And then, only if it's really important, it gets saved to your hard drive, your long-term memory. And here's the kicker. This is the bottleneck in the whole system. That working memory, our mental workbench, it can only handle like 5 to 9 pieces of information at a time. That's it. It's a really limited resource. Which brings us to a super important idea for this whole thing. Cognitive load. It's just a fancy term for how much stuff you're trying to juggle in your working memory at any given moment. You know that feeling when you try to cram too much in there at once and your brain just kind of short circuits? That's cognitive overload, that feeling of being totally overwhelmed. All right, so let's talk about how our modern world is just constantly hammering this very limited mental workbench with everything. And look, it's not just in your head, it's a reality. A crazy 73% of people, that's nearly 3 out of 4 of us, agree that there's a non-stop war for our attention. Every single app, every social media feed, every screen is fighting for a piece of your brain power. And here's the wildest part. We don't even realize how much it's happening. If you ask someone, hey, how often do you check your phone? They'll guess maybe 25 times a day. But the reality, the actual data shows it's at least double that, more like 50 to 80 times a day. It's become totally automatic. We don't even think about it.
So okay, if our brains aren't broken, then what the heck is going on? Well, this is where the story takes a really cool turn. What we're going through isn't some kind of breakdown, it's more like a revolution, an attention revolution.
And you know, a Nobel Prize winner named Herbert Simon basically called this way back in 1971. He said the problem of the future isn't going to be a lack of information, it's going to be a lack of attention to deal with all that information. And man, was he right on the money.
So here's the big reframe. The myth is shorter attention spans, but the reality, it's more like we've developed narrower attention bands. Our brains didn't just get worse at focusing. No way! They got smarter. They've become these amazing, high-tech filtering systems that are constantly and rapidly deciding, is this worth my time? Nope. Is this? Yes.
And think about it. The proof is everywhere, right? If your attention span was really broken, how could you possibly binge watch a whole season of a show for 8 hours straight, or get completely lost in a 3-hour podcast, or game for hours on end? See, those aren't signs of a broken brain. They're signs of a brain that's being incredibly selective.
And that's the real takeaway here. This isn't a skill problem, it's a motivation problem. Your brain has become ruthless, absolutely ruthless about where it spends its focus. If something is interesting or meaningful to you, you've got all the focus in the world. But if it's not, your brain pulls the plug, instantly. So this all leads to the final and I think most important piece of the puzzle. If our attention is this valuable, highly filtered thing, then maybe the whole conversation needs to change. Maybe it's not about fixing us. Maybe it's about fixing the stuff around us that's just failing to keep us engaged.
I mean, just look at the workplace. Gallup found that only 31% of employees in the US are actually engaged with their jobs. 31%. That's a 10-year low. And all this talk about quiet quitting, that's not about people being lazy. It's a huge collective withdrawal of attention. People are taking their focus away from work they just don't find meaningful.
Okay, so let's wrap this all up. Here's the real story of attention. Your ability to go deep and focus, it's not gone, not at all. Your brain is simply adapting. It's become this elite-level bouncer at the door of your mind, deciding what gets in. It only gives focus to things that earn it. So the problem isn't your broken brain. The problem is an environment that, a lot of the time, just doesn't deserve your amazing attention.
And that leaves us with one last big question, a much more powerful one, I think. Maybe we've all been asking the wrong thing. Instead of asking, how do I pay attention? Maybe the question we should be asking is, how do we create work and content and lives that are actually worthy of our attention in the first place?